Ah! Welcome to Immediate Review. Where we can't see movies in theaters, but we still see them at Dakota's house and then review them immediately. I did that wrong, but yeah. We just saw Peter Jackson's The Hobbit.
An Unexpected Journey.
Yeah, what he said. I would have got it wrong.
Woof.
We're joined today by Mampton.
What should we start with? Should we just go through the movie and point out the changes, or should we?
I say we do our general thoughts first.
Okay,
and that's how we've been
I've
doing these.
My general thoughts is I fucking love this movie. I remember, Lord of the Rings is my favorite movie trilogy ever, and I was 11 when the first one came out, and it changed my life more than Star Wars. And so, yeah, I was 22 when Unexpected Journey came out, and man, I was scared it was going to suck. But, I was watching the production diaries and all the behind-the-scenes footage, and I was just... it all looked so, like, I don't know, the spirit of New Zealand was there, and I was like, fuck, this is crazy. And, I'm one of the few people, I wanted them to make it 3 movies from the beginning. When they announced it was 2, I was like... So it's going to be like 2 movies sitting next to 3. Might as well just make it a trilogy. And it happened, and I was stoked. Yeah, saw the movie in theaters. Freaking loved it. Came home to find that not everybody loves it. But, I'm a big Tolkien fan, and I'm a big Peter Jackson fan. And this is just the best of both worlds. And, we're going to talk about what we love and address the... general criticisms that people have, both the valid and the ones that are blown out of proportion. But yeah, that's my general thoughts.
So yeah, I love this movie. If you watched our is it Ralph Bakshi's The Hobbit?
Mm-mm.
No,
Rankin and
Bash The Hobbit. Yeah, I can't get either of those right, and I probably never will. But either way. Yeah, if you watch that review, I haven't read The Hobbit, so I don't really have any, source material to kind of go off of. But, I love Peter Jackson movies. I love this one. I didn't really know what to expect because I hadn't read the movie when I knew that it was coming out. But, I was really glad to have an extension and to see more of just this world and whatnot, get a chance to kind of come back to it.
I mean, this one's more of the same place, but it's still more.
No, yeah, and it kind of leads into it, it's just kind of, it's like the same reason I played Shadow of Mordor. It was like just to experience the world like a little bit more, regardless of like the context. But it turned out to be really enjoyable, and not everybody agrees, but that's what I think.
I thought the movie was great. I've seen Peter Jackson's other films, and more recently I've seen the other one, Rankin and Bass, you said?
Yeah.
That one had its enjoyable parts as well, and I can see the passion behind it with everybody about these stories, and it's an amazing story. And there's parts of The Hobbit that you almost look forward to more because it kind of embellishes upon things, and different stuff happens that don't happen in the rest of the Lord of the Rings, and so it has its own
and
kind of allure.
Does.
And I was stoked when I first saw it, and it holds up to today. So.
Yep. So this is the format we've been doing for all of these. We're just gonna walk through.
We can take notes at home.
Yeah, and it's a little easier with movies like these that we love so much, that are like so just heavily packed with content, to like walk through it and talk about each thing rather than trying to pick on different parts and try to talk about everything.
Yeah, there's a lot to discuss, so I'm just gonna kind of quickly talk about the changes I like, and then you guys can kind of discuss what you dig about the scene, because I'm sure whatever you have to say I'll agree with. But changes I like. First of all, they start this movie with a prologue kind of similar to the one in Fellowship, and I really, really enjoy it. My skepticism was completely removed once it cut to Dale, because I was still, when it starts and it's like, my dear Frodo, like in theaters I was like, oh my god, don't let this be bad. And it's like, you asked me once, and I'm just like, come on, fuck. I really hope this is bad. And it cuts to Dale, and oh, it's amazing. And yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of like the whole having Bilbo and Frodo in it. It's all right. I'm not in love with it. I don't hate it. But I really like Ian Holm doing the narration for the prologue as old Bilbo. So that alone makes it worth it.
Yeah, he does a great job narrating.
Yeah.
Like he you know, along with the music, just does a really good job of conveying the calamity. You know, the entire like the fact that like there's a fucking dragon coming and it's like killing everybody, and that Dale is like nothing compared to it, and yeah.
Yeah, what'd you think of the prologue, Mampton?
Definitely builds a sense of dread and foreboding that permeates the rest of the film and anticipation.
Yeah, anticipation. Okay, so yeah, the prologue sets up, it shows, it gives you a little hint of Smaug, it establishes Thranduil and Mirkwood, it dives deeper into Thorin's character than the book does, and it just sets the stage really well, I think.
Yeah, and I think that this is an important thing to note, is like in the, you know, 1977 adaptation, it's like we like the dwarves have no semblance of like who they are. There's no backstory to them. It's just like, here's these dwarves and they're gonna go and do this, and there's a dragon, and
yeah,
it's like
it's through poetry they tell the story, but it's still kind of not fully clear.
I mean, there's no connection. Like, I don't have any connection to the, like, when they're at the end, when they're like, oh yeah, like, you know, how many of our company are still alive? Oh, 7. And it's like, oh, what about this, you know, Thorin? It's just like, oh, soon to be 6.
That's movie 3.
And but I mean, still, same person made it, you know what I mean? It's like they don't care about, like, or I didn't care about the characters at all, and Peter Jackson does a really good job of building these characters people, and like giving them a backstory and giving them a why of why all of they're doing this and why it's worth Bilbo risking his life to do. And
that's the thing, and people, you know, a lot of people just see that as kind of unnecessary, and just like, you know, it's like, it's about dwarves who go to the fucking mountain. Get on with it. You know, they don't really, I don't know. Like, I don't think people realize just how important, like, character development and backstory like that is, and that it's really non-existent in the book, because the book is kind of just this fun little simple adventure. And, you know, if you're going to translate it to film, you need to, give it some meat,
flesh it out a little
and
bit.
Not only that, but it's very similar to Lord of the Rings. Really, it's like, oh, a hobbit has to go to a mountain, and so he goes through Rivendell, and then the Mines of Moria, or close to the Mines of Moria. Then he has to go through a dark, creepy forest and a desolate land, and then he reaches the mountain, and you know, it's like the stories are very similar. So you just like, I don't know, a lot of the character and plot is what makes it different from Lord of the Rings. Especially this one, it's really tough because every location in this movie we've already seen in Fellowship. And so like Peter Jackson's got to find a way to like make these things we've already seen seem interesting, and it didn't work for a lot of people. But it definitely works for me.
it works for me.
Yeah, and I like seeing the differences between Frodo and Bilbo, like their differences in personality. You know,
oh yeah,
it's way different, like what Frodo would have done or what Bilbo would have done, because you know.
Yeah, and we get a Frodo cameo in this movie as well.
Yeah. Well, Bilbo's adventure is more, I don't know, from his perspective at first, he kind of just chooses to kind of go along with it, just for fun, where Frodo's got, like, the weight of the fucking world on his shoulders when he walks out that door.
It's not an adventure.
So he's not as quirky. Okay, so, Chapter 1, An Unexpected Party. So, first of all, dwarves have, personalities. it's
And distinct features.
yeah, mainly. I mean, it's not for a lot of people. Didn't come off very well in the movie because it's more subtle. There's never a scene where it's like, I'm the one who steals, or like, I don't know. It's all done through their dialogue and their mannerisms, and he tries to give them as much as possible. But they're definitely the hero dwarves, Dwalin, Balin, Thorin, obviously, and then Fili and Kili because they die later. And then
spoiler alert.
Boffer is Bilbo's like kind of, he's just his support man. He's just always there, just like, oh, you're awesome, Bilbo. Like, he's just like, I don't know, he's just always positive. Like anytime everyone's down,
Everyone's like, he's like, oh no, everything's gonna be great.
Bomber's the cook. He's the
Think furnace with wings.
And Bomber's a lot less whiny than he is in the book and in the Rankin and Bass version too. Gloin, they did a good job of making him look like Gimli. And Oin, they made him like the like medic with like the hearing horn, and he's like the old man on the trip. And he's pretty damn funny. And then Dory's like he's like the fancy dwarf. He's like the fancy pinky out dwarf with the rolls.
Right.
And then Nori steals. He's the thief.
With the Tri-Hawk.
Yeah, with the Tri-Hawk.
I think Jay pulled it off better.
And freaking Ori. Ori's like the tiny young one. He's got a lot of funny lines. He's like the really young one.
Don't like green food.
Did I miss any of them? Is that all of them? I don't know. I might have missed a couple, but I'm pretty sure I got most of them. But yeah, some of them are just based on vague jobs and traits, and they're not like fully fleshed out characters. But in the book, it's like literally these two had red hoods and these two had blue belts, and like that's what it is. Oin Gloin light fires. Bomber's fat, Thorin's the king. That is basically the most we get, and the rest. But so yeah, I think the movie does a great job of that.
Especially like the one that's a little out of sorts because he's got the axe handle on his forehead.
Oh yeah, Biffer. I think I didn't mention him. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and he only speaks Dwarvish in the movie, which I dig. And I also like in this movie they never translate the Dwarvish because it's a secret language. So anytime they speak Dwarvish in the movie, they don't do subtitles for it at all. But so yeah, Bilbo's purpose in the journey is a little clearer. They talk about, that Smaug can't smell hobbits, even though he'd probably smell like dwarves, but whatever. It's way muddy in the book. Gandalf says he can't find a warrior or some shit. And so he needs Bilbo, and there's no other possible hobbits.
Yeah, Bilbo comments that, it's just like, I'm not a warrior. And that's at the very end. I think that's a kind of a throwback to that.
Thorin at the beginning. In this movie, Thorin just does not like Bilbo. In the book, first time he meets him, he's like, let us give a cheer for our most noble hobbit who's going on this journey. And this movie, it's like, he's got to prove himself. The dwarves in the book, by the way, don't fight at all. Like they don't have weapons. Like during the troll sequence, they don't fend for themselves. During the warg sequence, they only hide in the trees. They don't fight goblins in the mines. It just makes no sense for them to not be warriors. So you gotta include that stuff, and they would look down on Bilbo for not being a warrior. So
How dare you, Peter Jackson?
A lot of the stuff that people see as needless drama just is kind of essential for movies, and just to
make it make sense visually.
It's just if we're being real, Tolkien just didn't flesh it out, and it's a very simple book, and it's just I don't know, it's got to have some weight to it.
And I mean, I haven't read it, but I feel like people like it enough that it works for a book, but to translate it to a movie and actually have it be a compelling movie to watch, you need to kind of dive into things and make our characters a little more real and likable and make us care about them and tell the story that
Well,
they're
not
going on.
not only that too, but in this movie, there's throughout the trilogy, of course, there's a lot of like deviations and additions from the book and stuff. But anytime they are like on book, they're more on book than they are in Lord of the Rings, truth be told. Like, it's in some ways there are more changes in Lord of the Rings than there are in this movie. But, y'all just didn't finish Lord of the Rings. But yeah, I also like that Bilbo chooses to leave. The dwarves all leave, and Bilbo's like, thank God they're out of my house. And then he realizes how boring his life is, and he wants to go on an adventure, and then he's in over his head. Because in the book, Gandalf just kind of shoves him out. Like, Bilbo's like, thank God they're gone. And then Gandalf comes over and is like, what? No, let's go, leave. And it's like, to this day, Bilbo has no idea. So, yeah, those are the changes I really like from the book in the first chapter and what is the first, 40 minutes of the movie. And I love it. So, yeah, what do you guys think of, the opening sequence, meeting the dwarves and all that?
So yeah, I like if I'm gonna be directly comparing this to.
If Rankin and Bass is your reference, let it be your reference.
It literally is.
That one,
at this point.
It's
the
honestly
only thing.
pretty accurate to the book. It is.
And yeah, so I think that the entire dinner sequence makes way more sense and just gives a better sense of who our characters are. We get. A couple of them showing up. Balin shows up, second, he's my favorite dwarf. They just have this, really good sequence that just introduces all of the characters and kind of, even if you don't know what their names are, kind of what they look like, what their personality traits are, and just kind of, who they are in general. And the song Bilbo Baggins Hates or whatever
it's
the song's
in both
name.
Of them, yeah.
This one I think is done way better. It's way more catchy. It's not I don't know, the other one it's kind of like they're apologizing to him of just we've got to clean everything up, and it's this is what Bilbo Baggins hates, and they're trying to clean, and it's just and he's just
that's an interesting
and this one is they're this is what he hates, kind of getting him riling him up and whatnot.
Well, not only that, but it establishes their method of tossing weapons to one another.
And that they're coordinated enough to be able to do stuff like that. And so I really liked it. I thought it was super playful, and they toss the plates around, and then after they explain everything, we get the song before they leave,
the Misty Mountain song.
Which is
so
super
done.
Dark and somber.
They actually sang it too.
And they harmonize incredibly well. The shot kind of pans through. It's all good. I love the entire scene. Mampton.
Yeah, Mampton. Any further comments on meeting the dwarves?
Yeah, I was thinking that the sequence is a lot more fluid than the other version that we saw, the Franklin and Bass one. There's less, whereas that one's more broad strokes and kind of filled in with your imagination. It's more visually pleasing, and it makes things make more sense, like you guys were saying. How we're introduced to the dwarves, and then them singing introduces us into more of their culture, because so many of them together, you don't see that very often, since their culture is nomadic now.
Gimli's the only one we see in Lord of the Rings.
And so it's more of an immersive, and they're very musical and jovial people. But as well as being, Gimli.
Oh, except the 7 dwarf lords at the beginning. Sorry, that's the only time. Continue.
Well, yeah. It shows another side to the gruff warrior cliche of the dwarves, I think.
Yeah, no, they do a fine balance with it, because in the book it's they don't carry weapons at all. And in this one, they point out that a few of them are like true warriors, but the rest have other traits. But it's like in this world, you carry a fucking sword, like or some type of weapon.
As a man, especially in that time period.
Hey, women of this country learned long ago those without swords can still die upon them.
Yeah.
And with the dwarves as well, it's like they're not a group of warriors who all fought together. Like some of them did, like Balin and Thorin. Because Balin, I'm pretty sure, was part of his grandfather's council. They aren't all just like a band of warriors who've all continued on and are now going to go fight the dragon. It's like Thorin. The way that it's framed is like Thorin kind of was like, oh, okay, so we're back. Technical difficulties. But yeah, so the way that it's framed is that Thorin basically is like, look, I need the Lonely Mountain back. We're gonna go get it back. We're gonna take down the dragon. We're getting our gold. Okay, who's coming with me?
Who's coming with?
And these 12 dwarves, 13 dwarves. I think it's 12.
13.
So yeah, 13.
The dirty bakers.
They're like, yeah, we'll follow you, and everybody else was basically like, fuck that. And so yeah, they don't all have to be warriors. And the fact that they aren't makes sense. But none of them being warriors, it's like, if none of them were, and it's like, we're gonna go take back our fucking town from this dragon that killed everybody and has held this thing for fucking like, 60, 70 years or something like that, however long it's been. It's like
60,
it's like how are you gonna get it back? With no fucking none of you know how to fight. They got weapons.
A wizard. We gotta bring burglars and wizards, man. That's our plan.
And honestly, in this, they address that where there's like, how many wizards or how many dragons have you slain? And he's like, it's like, they all get fucking super pissed.
Chapter 2, roast mutton. This is when they meet the dwarves. So yeah, positive change I like. Dwarves fight the trolls. Very sensible. We need to see them fight. You've been at the Shire for almost an hour. Time for a little action.
Well, and we get to see they have their kind of talk before they meet where we get a little
great
more
added
backstory.
scene where we see the Battle of Moria, and we see Thror.
Yeah. And we're introduced to, I think, the biggest change is the introduction.
One of the biggest ones.
Is the introduction of Azog.
Azog is dead in the book.
Yeah.
But you could almost look at it like it's the way they talk about it in this is almost as if people think he might be dead. And so, I don't know, it's like, it's not that outlandish that it's like, maybe he wasn't.
Well, and
right.
Yeah, and I think that it works because this whole story doesn't really have any type of, like, major conflict, it's just like, the random orcs.
It's episodic. The story is episodic.
And I think that this does a good job of giving, like, a reason why the orcs are constantly coming after them, and not just like, they ran into another random pack, they ran into another one, there were goblins there, now there are two different armies of goblins and orcs showing up for some reason.
A semblance of something coming from all the chaos.
Yeah, and it gives us like an antagonist. Like this story does not have an antagonist, and until the middle, like Smaug is basically our antagonist, and he's not in it.
He's the most powerful.
And he's introduced and taken out very quickly, and so I like that he's given his own movie, like in Peter Jackson's, where it's like he is the center fucking focus, and he is not dealt with at the end of that movie. Like he gets this whole movie to reign supreme and be the beginning looming threat for the next movie.
Well,
if you think about it, he's in all three.
Yeah.
It just spans. He just like spills over a little bit.
Well, and the first time I saw the movie, the reason I was okay with this, I just saw the tracks that they were laying out because Thorin dies in the third one, and Thorin dies basically off screen, off page, I guess. And so we don't really know what happened. And it's like, what, is that what's going to happen? A random orc stabs him? Or should it be something with a little more weight to it? That, again, makes the story different from Lord of the Rings.
Not just a retelling, but more, like helping the story, embellishing here and there.
Yeah, and the Battle for Moria scene, I know people complain that like half, well, people say all the orcs are CGI, but it's more like half. And yeah, they're way cooler in prosthetics, but still. The Battle for Moria has a lot of prosthetic orcs, and yeah, it's a great fucking little flashback battle sequence with that great line Balin has. That is one I could call king.
Yeah, and Balin's narration over the whole thing is excellent. Like, he does a great job of just that open-ended speaking, and yeah, love it.
So in Roast Mutton, also Bilbo gets the chance to be useful. He kind of he notices that Gandalf's in the trees. He tries to outsmart the trolls. He's trying to free Daisy and Bungo, and like he's trying to prove himself a little. Where in the book he's just kind of
parasites as big as me.
I quote this scene a lot. Anytime that somebody something happens and it's nobody's fault, it's just like, this got knocked over. It's like, you won.
Get me Philly knife. That's one.
Get me Philly knife. Matt says that all the time.
But yeah, Bilbo is a little more useful in the movie version. In the book, Gandalf, Bert, William, and Tom, that's their name, and Gandalf, like, while they're arguing about how to cook Bilbo, instead of Bilbo buying for time, Gandalf pretends to be the trolls and like whispers to them and is like, maybe you should do this, and the troll's like, what? No. And yeah, it's hard to even explain. It's just like,
that's interesting.
There's so many things that just like I'm sorry,
translate well.
I'm sorry, Tolkien purists, but there are a lot of dumb things in the book, and it's like a lot of people, loathe this Hobbit movie because they think it's some abomination. But it's like the original Hobbit compared to Lord of the Rings is I don't know. It's not that great. It was never fulfilling when I read it as a kid. I hate to say it. It was fun, but it wasn't like the same story. And so, yeah, I love seeing just a fleshed out version of that 80-year-old book I've been reading ever since I was a little kid.
And the animated one, Gandalf, he like summons.
It implies
the
that he rises the sun, and the book sort of does that too. And and so they cut all of that and just had it be Gandalf fucking breaks a rock to reveal the sun, a rock they obviously put up to give them extra shade.
And it kind of like the lighting in the background, it starts to lighten up as they're talking.
Yeah, and it's just it's a more sensible way for Gandalf to bring out the sun than just like,
look how powerful I am.
Yeah, because it's like we obviously know, like in Lord of the Rings, that he has the power to like shine light with his staff and whatnot. But it's like it shouldn't be the ability to like literally radiate like
the sun.
The sun. It should be different.
And that's the thing is when Tolkien wrote The Hobbit, like it's Middle Earth, like he just kind of wrote it for his kids, and he didn't even finish the ending until his publishers wanted him to. And it's like, so the continuity isn't solid. Gandalf like does and doesn't do some things that don't really match up when you compare the books. So yeah, it gives them a lot of leeway. But yeah, anything else you guys want to say about the trolls before we move on?
They're pretty funny.
They're infected. They've got worms in their tubes.
Yeah, Martin Freeman in that scene is incredible.
Ain't nothing wrong with a little raw dwarf.
Okay, chapter 3, a short rest. They go to Rivendell. Okay, one thing I really love is that Thorin doesn't want to go to Rivendell. He protests. In the book, this does not happen. It sets up his distrust for Mirkwood elves later on down the line. it kind of shows his stubbornness as a character, and that he doesn't want anybody.
It ties into the flashback for Smaug too, when he runs out and he's like, "Help!" He looks up and the elves are just like,
Yeah. He's like, he doesn't trust the elves. Yeah.
It's like it lays everything out for us.
But
it kind of gives like a reason to like the old argument of dwarves and elves hate each other.
Yeah. And yeah, you get to visit Rivendell again, and thank God Hugo Weaving hasn't aged a day. He really is an actual elf.
Yeah.
So before that, though, we get a nice little warg attack that happens, added, not from the book. And one thing I really love is they specifically say they're not called wolves. Love that. But
that's not a wolf.
Even though they are once in a while in the book, I always hated it. It was inconsistent. But yeah, it's a great little scene. Radagast, we forgot to talk about Radagast. So Radagast is in Lord of the Rings. Very briefly, Gandalf talks to him. He gives Gandalf advice. And Saruman says he hates Radagast. And like, not much is given about his character. So they pretty much like made this character 100% their own. And yeah, it is just pure kooky Peter Jackson-ness, and I love it. Like, I just
egg shit down, or with the bird shit.
He's got a bird's nest in his head, and like he's so one with the wilderness. His house literally has a tree through it. It's really over the top, and like a lot of like snobby Tolkien fans really don't like it. But like, I don't know. I think it's just that I don't know, just that kooky. The guy played Doctor Who, like before. So if I guess that's the best way I can put it. He's just he's a more over the top, quirky, ridiculous character that I love. What do you guys think of Radagast?
Yeah, I like Radagast.
He's a box of energy.
He's a box of energy.
Yeah, I like the connection to animals, the kind of different aspects of magic, and how he kind of doesn't, like, he's kind of disconnected himself from magic a bit. Like when he's first trying to heal the hedgehog, it's like he tries a bunch of different stuff and he's just like, nothing's working unless it's magic. And it is magic. And super good. And the warg chase kind of leads into his introduction, because he's got to he goes and checks out the castle and then shows up and it's like, yo, shit went down at the fucking castle, dude.
So his Radagast, his rabbit sled, when Peter pitched that, it's in the behind the scenes, everyone is like, dude, are you for real? Like people are like telling him like this isn't a good idea, and he like found pictures of this guy who raises rabbits that are like this fucking big, and he's just like, you tell me 8 of those couldn't pull him, and like they were just like, oh fuck, okay, if they actually are that big in our world, I guess it's not that ridiculous,
right?
But I love his rabbit sled, his Rustabel rabbit sled. Dol Guldur plot, absolutely love that. In the book, Gandalf pieces out right before Mirkwood, and we don't see where he goes. We don't know why he goes. We never hear of it. You have to read the appendices to find out. This trilogy does it, and this one establishes Dol Guldur in the presence of the necromancer. The wizards later find out to be Sauron. It's been significantly condensed in the movie. In the book, well, not even in the book, I guess in Tolkien lore, the Dol Guldur plot happens over a period of about 1,000 years. From basically, they just kept going back to Dol Guldur every couple hundred years, and eventually decided to attack. And so technically in The Hobbit, the only event that happens in the book is when they attack in Battle of the Five Armies. That's it. Everything else took place hundreds of years before. Gandalf visiting it, Gandalf finding Thrain down there, all of that, they just condensed into this trilogy. That's another problem some, Tolkien purists have, is it messes with the official canon timeline, but, the Lord of the Rings trilogy already did that.
Yeah, it takes fucking Gandalf like 10 fucking years to like do anything, and it's just like it's okay to speed things up to make it seem like shit's important.
Because it is.
Yeah, if you I don't know, look it up if you want to look in the appendices, but yeah, the schedule of which they address Dol Guldur is really baffling. And it makes our government seem fast and effective. But yeah, so they go to Rivendell. It's great. I love that Bilbo connects with Rivendell and kind of walks about and is like, hey, this place is nice. And him and Elrond have a conversation.
It's just super awesome.
They lift a few lines from Fellowship with Frodo and another elf. And yeah, Elrond tells Bilbo he can come back. And yeah, it's one of my favorite connections to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Oh, Elrond doesn't want them to go. I really love that Elrond is like, not like, of course, go disturb Smaug. He's like, yeah, maybe he's dead, but maybe he's not. Maybe you should just let him sleep and not do anything.
And not get a lot of people killed.
Yeah, it's, you're going to wake a dragon. So, yeah, what do you guys think about Rivendell overall?
Yes, I really like it. I love how basically everything kind of is interwoven together. Like we get the wargs chasing them. We have the Rostabel carriage, running around, having all the wargs go in different directions, and then they get to the hidden pass, and it's like that's what Gandalf has been leading them to this whole time, and it leads us to Rivendell, and it's super cool. And when we get there, it's like, oh, Elrond's not there. And then he rides in because that was the group of elves that was killing the wargs behind them as they went down the pass. And then we have this interaction of like, half trust and distrust of like, Elrond's like, I know you aren't going to trust me and whatnot, so I'm going to, kind of fuck with you a little bit. And kind of speaks to him in Elvish and whatnot. And kind of has this like kind of like lurching kind of body language towards them, and then they're just, does he mean to offer us insult? And it's like, no, he's offering you food.
Oh yeah, I love how uncouth the dwarves are overall. Just we barely scratched the surface, but just like how intrusive they are at Bilbo's house is just so glorious.
Yep.
And I love seeing Martin Freeman just freak out and stamp about the place.
Like, do you need a cheese knife? Oh no, eat some by the block. And yeah, when they get there, it's like, where's the meat? He's like tossing just like everything, and like, one guy's like stealing a bunch of stuff, and they're like swimming in like probably sacred fountains and like just naked bathing. And
I really like how against Thorin's wishes, Gandalf just herds them into Rivendell.
Yeah.
And then once they get there, he's like, hey, what are we gonna do? And then it's
like, we
exactly
need food.
What he planned. And it turned out to be exactly what they needed, because they wouldn't have been able to read the map without it.
But even then, his trust in elves is not completely like mended, because Elrond is still like, you can't go to the mountain, and so Thorin still sees him as an obstacle and somewhat of a threat. It's not like all is forgiven. I like elves now or something like.
Yeah, specifically for Elrond, I think that. He still doesn't like elves, but he has a kind of like begrudging respect for them.
It's just a long road for him to like get there. So the White Council, one of the best additions. This is in the appendices. It's great. It's a meeting between some of the more powerful people in Middle-earth: Elrond, Galadriel, Saruman. We get Christopher Lee in his final performance.
And his final form.
He does amazing. I was thinking about it, and I'm so glad that they didn't have to like do what Rise of Skywalker did and kind of piece together things. They had like a lot of good meaty dialogue for Christopher Lee to say. It wasn't just all reaction stuff. There was back and forth between him and Gandalf, because they had to shoot it closer to him in London. They couldn't fly him to New Zealand. And they just do a good job. It doesn't seem like they're just inserting random shots. And I love the topics. We get into ring lore. It's just like, it's a scene that does so much for Tolkien's world. So yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, loved this scene. Probably my favorite scene in this movie. It does such a good job of just, I guess, just like dealing out exposition, but just in a way that is so compelling and like
every actor is just a masterclass.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing. Like, it could be Peter Jackson's directing, but I honestly feel like it's more just
both.
the fact that
behind the scenes they had like
it was
all,
basically
all
the
of them
same.
had like round table powwows where they were going like in depth into what their character motivations are, and they like told the crew to go like take a longer lunch so they could focus on the scene more and stuff.
Yeah, and it's like you can really tell because it's like they put so much focus into this, and just having just these powerhouse actors like all on the screen at the same time is just really, really cool to see. They talk about what happened to the dwarf lords who had their rings and why all of them are missing, and which is something that I've been honestly been wondering like for a while. It's like that is something I hadn't picked up on the last times that I've watched it. And it just does a really good job. Obviously I don't remember her name, but the lady who plays Galadriel.
Oh, Kate Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett is excellent and way better than she is in fucking Marvel movies. Fucking Christ.
Shots fired. Down votes.
But like seriously, I mean, if Marvel fans are this far into this movie, into this like review, man, I'm gonna be surprised.
Oh, there's intersection. There's crossover. Anyways, continue.
But yeah, I really love this scene, and just I mean, I feel like they could fucking talk about anything, and like these actors, and I would be compelled by it. But yeah, just really, really good dialogue. He gets to convince them, like we get to see this whole like, oh no, you're crazy, and then he shows the blade and they're like, oh shit, and like the whole tone of the conversation changes. It's just like, it's done really well.
It sets up the kind of I don't know, the trilogy kind of dabbles into the politics of Middle Earth, even down to the Goblin King knowing who Thorin is, and kind of giving his
and
2
having
cents.
connections to Azog.
Yeah, and so this is almost just like I don't know, an interesting like political meeting about the general going-ons of Middle Earth, and it's just like it gives weight to their quest, because that's one complaint people have about this, is that the quest isn't as big as destroying the One Ring. And yeah, sure, that's true, whatever, but it's the movie does give greater weight overall to like what they're doing, and they talk about how if Smaug is dead, anybody could take it back. And then later, Battle of the Five Armies gets into like what each group would do if they had control over the mountain, and just good details that scene sets up. Manton, what do you think about the White Council?
Oh, the whole scene is phenomenal. The actors, down to the lighting itself, as the tone of the conversation continues to go on and get darker. That the sun's like sinking deeper, just like setting the perfect tone.
Oh, dude, you're so right.
Whether it's CGI or whatever, it was just worked very well with it, I think.
And then at the end when they come to their resolution, the sun like starts rising in the background. It's like, that's crazy, man. I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I've seen Christopher Lee deliver a meaty performance there. You want him. You want to see him as much as you can while we have him.
Yeah.
So, I really enjoyed that. especially while he's still. Well, you get a look at the character while he's still a good guy at this point.
Yes, that is an interesting angle.
But you kind of see how his thoughts are clouded, and it's kind of allowing him to slip into the shadow.
He's still, he's curmudgeonly. He flat out doesn't like Radagast. Gandalf is not comforted by his presence, and
yeah, they have this whole where he turns around and he's like, oh, hello. It's just it's very a bureaucratic relationship, you could say.
Dude, man, this video is gonna be as fucking long as the movie. Okay, so chapter 4, Over Hill and Under Hill. This is where they escape. One change I really like is that Gandalf has to catch up to the dwarves because the dwarves snuck out during the council. In the book, they all go together, and then once the goblins capture him, Gandalf just sneaks out, and then shows up, which is fine when you're reading a book. But in a movie, it really would be like, all right, Gandalf, come save us. Come on, Gandalf. Where in the movie version, he has to catch up. He has to get there. He hasn't saved them because he's not there yet. He's not just hiding behind a rock like a dick.
He's old.
So real quick, the Titans fighting scene.
Giants.
They
Storm
giants.
Yeah,
the Storm Giants, they fight. We have that scene. I don't know how people what people think about that. It's cool.
I'm sure most people hate it.
Yeah, it seems weird that that would happen so close to where all these goblins are and where Golem is and whatnot.
I don't think there's logic to be found in it. No.
Yeah, it's really just kind of a cool, just giant scene. And honestly, I don't hate it. It's just kind of one of those things where you kind of have to think about just this is a this is a thing that happens here. And so in terms of all the movie, it's I love Peter Jackson, but I have to just when my mind questions the logic, I have to present it in terms of being a fair review.
Oh yeah,
and that's one of the spots where it's
oh yeah, Peter don't give a fuck. He flat out is no, physicists should not watch my movies. Yeah, the Stone Giant sequence, man, I love the way they shot that with just the sweeping cameras, and it's one of the few scenes where I do almost lament that I didn't see the 3D version. Yeah, and the behind the scenes is hilarious.
But yeah, I'd be down to see a Peter Jackson Pacific Rim kind of thing, where with giant mechs and stuff and just huge thing battle. He's done King Kong.
That's a good point. Yeah. The Stone Giants are mentioned in the book, but he does a big sequence out of it.
Yeah.
And so I guess now's a fair time to mention, because I think the Stone Giants is one of the sequences that gets the most shit. Peter, the Hobbit is often criticized for adding action scenes that weren't in the book at all. Here is a quick list of sequences that were not in the Lord of the Rings book. Sauron fighting in the battle like a motherfucking badass. Basically every Saruman scene in Fellowship of the Ring, not in the book. The Uruk-hai tracking the Fellowship and running them down, and Lurtz, the character of Lurtz. He was completely added in. The Watcher, he's just one tentacle in the book. In the movie, it's a big elaborate sequence where Frodo gets grabbed and creature comes out and they all gotta slice and dice and he pulls the caves. The Cave Troll, the badass fucking long sequence with the Cave Troll. Not in the book at all. They stab it in the foot and it runs away. The stairs escape in Fellowship when they're on the stairs, then there's a thing, and then the rock falls and it breaks it, and then they gotta jump, and then it's falling and all that shit. It's just why were people shocked that The Hobbit had long, elaborate sequences? The Balrog fight in the Two Towers, Treebeard killing an orc, the Wild Men attacking, the Uruk-hai fight at the end, Aragorn and them, they don't fight those orcs. Boromir runs into the camp. Merry and Pippin are there. The orcs steal him, and then Boromir tells Aragorn. They don't fight. The Wild Men attacking, again in Two Towers. basically every scene with Saruman in it. The love triangle in Two Towers. Aww. The warg attack in Two Towers. Faramir trying to take the ring in Two Towers. I guess that's a dramatic one. Taking Frodo to Osgiliath. Oh, remember when the elves show up in Helm's Deep and it's way badass? Yeah, not in the book. The elaborate skull avalanche in Return of the King that happens when they're in the cave. And all of the battles of Osgiliath. Return of the King actually is the one where all the crazy battles basically are in the book because there's so much. But yeah, my point is, why were people surprised that Peter Jackson did that?
True. Very true.
But you're right, it does lack logic in terms of maybe orcs do live there. And when it gets torn out, they all die. I like the way Bilbo escapes. He crouches down. He uses his sneaky little hobbitses.
Well, and
tricks.
they people have said in this that like hobbits are like they're notoriously overlooked,
Yep,
or
and
like,
light on their feet and all that.
I just
and he uses
completely
it.
don't see them.
You know what happens in the book? Bilbo is riding on one of the dwarves' back because he can't keep up. And they drop him.
While
Like you
in
do.
custody?
They drop him down the tunnel.
Like, fuck this guy.
They like a goblin pulls at them.
I mean, in the animated version, they're trying to run through a hole, and he smashes
knocked out
into the
the
top
bag.
of the hole and just falls into
See,
the
that's almost accurate.
So yeah, I like the way Bilbo escapes. Okay, so regarding the use of CGI and stuff, one department, the one I complain about the most is that there aren't any miniatures in this movie. They're
Besides Rivendell.
like Dol Guldur. Oh, I wish that was a miniature and stuff. However, the goblin tunnels and shit, damn, they look awesome. Like, they fucking look incredible. I'm stunned by the goblin tunnel sequence. It still looks really, really, really good for a 100% like CG environment. Yeah, so, alright, I yammered on about the goblins long enough. What do you guys dig about that whole part? Or what do you hate?
Goblin Town?
I mean, yeah, it's like the song and whatnot. Like it is.
It's why it's in the extended cut.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I don't really like the songs in the animated one either.
It's the spirit
So-
of the book, but yeah, it's take it or leave it for me too. Yeah.
But yeah, really, that's the only negative for the most part. Besides, I think the way that the Goblin King is like finished off by Gandalf. We're just kind of like, oh, what are you gonna do now? And it's like, oh, I'm gonna like stab you and cut you, and he's like, oh, that'll do it.
That'll do it.
And then
I don't know. It's so British. That's so Monty Python almost.
Yeah.
It's like I kind of love that.
and yeah, I don't know
After he does his number,
who
song and dance.
who the Goblin King actually was played by, but yeah,
Barry Humphries, I believe his name is.
Engelbert Humperdinck.
He was in. Yeah, we don't need to talk about what else he was in. But Manton, what do you think?
The whole goblin sequence is really cool. How they have these elaborate tunnels, and they have like the hinges, like a trap for the dwarves while they're sleeping. They just go.
Yeah. It's the goblins build many great and terrible, clever things.
Much like the dwarves, these goblins are living inside a mountain.
Oh, I never thought about that. They are mountain dwellers like the dwarves. Yeah, that's why they fought over Moria. Wow, yeah, duh.
Yeah, and the Goblin King's like, the king under the mountain, even though you don't have a mountain. And it's like,
I got a mountain,
I got
bitch.
a mountain. I'm the king under here, motherfucker.
My mountain's alive, so I technically own these people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it seems like there's an animosity specifically between those two, and
Yeah.
it really played out pretty well. It was almost venomous at times how the exchange was going, and then he sends off his little minion to go talk to Azog. He's like, I got your fucking trophy over here. Why don't you come pick it up?
Why don't you come pick it up? Oh, yeah, the little minion. Yeah, I do love that.
He's like,
Okay, so
that
Bilbo
zipline was
falls
sweet.
down the hole.
Bilbo falls down, and what everyone who's read the book, this is what it's been leading up to. Fucking, it's Riddles in the Dark, Chapter 5, where Bilbo and Gollum meet. Bilbo gets the ring. It's such an important chapter, and like this movie just does it justice. and adds so much more to it with Andy Serkis's performance as Gollum. And it's one of those things, like, you know, when people talk about wanting this to be one movie, this is a perfect example of like why it's good that this trilogy got fleshed out. Is so iconic moments like this can just be same with the chapter 1 for me when Bilbo and the dwarves first meet. I love just like seeing these iconic moments fleshed out like this. And Riddles in the Dark, man, it's amazing. I could only find 2 changes that were better. Gollum thinks the ring is in his pocket. When he goes to attack, he's like, lost. And then he reaches for the ring and is like, whoa, what the fuck? In the book, he's like, oh, I lost. I'll be back. And he like swims over to his island. And then he realizes his ring is gone and freaks out. And it's like he'd have the ring on him. Like, why would he keep it on the island? No goblins at the end. Bilbo escapes and there's goblins in the book. And there's no goblins at the end. I like that. But yeah, those are the only 2 like significant changes. Other than that, it's just a lot of the riddles are there. They're just killing it. What'd you guys think of Riddles in the Dark?
So I liked that Bilbo survives off just being a hobbit, like not being noticed, and like he sees the goblin, starts bashing the goblin's fucking face in. It's like if Bilbo would have been noticed, that would have been him. He wouldn't have stood a chance. And it allows Bilbo to see the ring fall off of Gollum's body, and we get to see this like awesome slow-mo shot of the ring like falling out, and just like it has this like thing of like, yeah, it could, like I mentioned that when we were watching it was like an act of God, but Mampton was like, no, it was like an act of the fucking ring.
Yeah, the ring
because
is
the ring
calling out.
wants to return to Sauron, and if it's going to stay with Gollum, then it's going to stay inside that cave, and it doesn't want that. It wants to go with this new person. Maybe it'll bring it closer to where it wants to be.
Yeah, and it's like obviously like the ring is an invisibility ring at this point because Sauron isn't at the level of power that he was at where he could physically look through essentially reality to see where the ring was and who was wearing it.
That's a bit of a tough one too, because they changed that in Lord of the Rings, and so from the book to the movie, because Bilbo in The Hobbit needs to be able to put the ring on and off at will, but they couldn't do that in Lord of the Rings. That's an interesting point. I never thought about that. Yeah, it works though.
Yeah, I thought it worked.
That's why he never thought anything about wearing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even in the beginning of the Lord of the Rings, he still doesn't see anything wrong with wearing it.
Yeah, that's very true.
And so, the whole sequence with Andy Serkis is excellent. Their acting is great apart from each other, way better than the animated version. And, Andy Serkis just gives it just this extra layer of depth. And, the camera angles that they're able to use. And, this scene feels like there's something actually at stake. It's not like, Bilbo just, like, outsmarting this, like, sad creature. It's like this creature has a realm of cunning to it, and like when he's giving his final riddle, he disappears, and like you hear his voice echoing, and you don't know where he's coming from, and is like ready to attack, and if he gets it wrong, it's like there's risk here, there's something at stake, and in the animated version there is not. There's nothing at stake, and he just outsmarts him. He swims away, and by the time he freaks out, he's like in the middle of the fucking. He's like he already had to swim away. There's no semblance of like, you have the ring. Like, now I'm gonna swim back over to you. It's like the pick of destiny. Like, come back over here so I can fucking stab you.
Exactly. That's what happens in the book. Is he realizes on the island that Bilbo has the ring, and so Bilbo has a head start, and he's got to swim across.
Yeah, it's like there's nothing at risk, and here there is, and I appreciate it.
He's right there when he finds out. Yeah, Mampton.
There was several things. I couldn't help but to think of the the animated version at the same time as watching it and seeing the similarities and differences, you know, in positive ways in both ways.
It's the one scene that does feel like there's a twinge. Even the voiceover that happens for one of the riddles in the animated version. So yeah, it's the one scene that I'd say does have some similarities possibly to the animated one.
And I feel like it has like just like a kind of like a guiding force through the scene where like it's almost tangible that you obviously know what's going to happen, but it happens a very particular way. Like it was always like I don't know, it's strange, but yeah, the riddles were a lot better than in the animated feature because you got like one, two, you got three in there, and then you have I think at least 5 that they did in this movie.
Yeah, 5, maybe 6. Yeah.
And so that was kind of cool. That it was more like a longer game, instead of like you were saying, it kind of builds the anticipation, and the stakes are like, oh, okay, well you might win, you might lose, or whatever, and it just made more sense. Like when he's holding Sting, and when Gollum is out on his island, he's killing his food, he's taking it back to his cave.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And it's like the little blinking out is what draws his attention, and that initiates their fateful meeting.
They're fateful indeed. Yeah. Yeah, and Gollum looks so incredible in this.
Yes, he looks excellent.
Yeah, it's they actually, so in Lord of the Rings they didn't do on-set mocap. He was just in like a skin suit, and he was able to interact with the environment and stuff. But they did the mocap in post-production on a soundstage, and so he had to recreate his motions. And then they actually didn't even have facial mocap at that point. So all the facial movements in The Lord of the Rings are the animators.
Okay.
So this is the only time like Gollum is just like full on. They captured Andy Serkis's movements, voice, and face in a single thing without having to like piece stuff together. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can definitely tell.
But I mean, I'm not trying to knock Lord of the Rings. He still looks incredible in Lord of the Rings, but it's like they raised it.
Like
they
technology advanced, and like they finally got to to do it with awesome shit.
So yeah, and next chapter is out of the frying pan and into the fire. Run! I love the last of my list of changes that I really like. I love that Bilbo doesn't tell his story in the book. They're like, tell us the story of Gollum, and he tells them the whole story, and then I don't know. They cut that out, and I'm really glad that they kind of move on. The wargs that attack them have been threaded throughout the entire movie. It's been a plot thread that is now paying off. In the book, it's the goblins just getting revenge, like just leaving and being like, you killed our king, damn you. Which, is fine. But I like it having a plot thread, and then it comes to the climax of Thorin finally accepting that Azog is alive, and taking him on and fucking losing, and Bilbo gets a chance to prove himself, and it's just like making it a troop of orcs that's been chasing them this whole time made that final battle so much better than just like, oh, there's goblins, they're after us, we gotta get them, we killed their king. I don't know, it just all had been building up, and I think it all came together well. The moth connection, the whole moth thing with the eagles is not in the books.
That's what
it's in Fellowship, and so they brought it back with this. In the book, it's like the Lord of the Eagles just sees off into the distance, and he's like, "What's this now?" and flies over and picks him up. And so in this, it's like you see the moth, and it's like if you remember from Fellowship, and obviously if you've read the book and stuff. Matt's gonna disagree with me on this one for sure, but I'm definitely glad the Eagles don't get thoroughly explained.
There's They're in a Nick box.
So Matt, you can explain. Okay, I'll explain my rationale, and I don't. We don't need to have a big debate, but
it's fine. It's fine.
But
we're already past an hour.
I know, man. It's gonna how it's gonna be. My whole thing is I would like the Eagles to be more thoroughly explained. However, just in terms of the movie, it's like so much has happened, and like if the Eagles dropped them off and we're like, okay, here's some more exposition, it's like the movie needs to get wrapped up, emotions need to be felt. It's like at that point, Eagle lore is just not needed in the final 3 or 4 minutes of the movie.
That holds this whole movie franchise.
I totally get that. Like, but yeah, it's like I'm down for more Eagle lore being told in this story.
Not the time.
Not right then, and not by the fucking eagle themselves. They're just like, yes, I'm a talking eagle now, and
You may wonder why that is.
Me and Gandalf, we're good buddy and pals. We used to know each other in the frat and had a bunch of crazy sex with all sorts of wild creatures. You wouldn't imagine it.
You wouldn't imagine
I
it.
was molting.
But yeah, that's what I love about the climax, and then we get that amazing shot of Smaug's eye at the end. Just brilliant. First time I saw the movie, I fucking loved it. I was so stoked. I was just like, I was 100% satisfied. Still am. Absolutely love this movie. Like the only flaws are just like nitpicks, or just stuff that I'm just not 100% on board with, like the whole my dear Frodo and like having Elijah Wood back and stuff. I'm like, take it or leave it on that. But yeah, I love this movie. So yeah, what'd you guys think of the end climax and shit?
So, final climax. Yes, I really enjoyed that it was based on Azog, and that it gets this. Like, how dare you, Peter Jackson, for giving this movie a emotional climax? It's like, it makes sense that, like, we need to have some sort of, like, thing to happen here at the end that is serious and, like, impactful and emotional.
Or else it's gonna feel even more like it needs to have a satisfying ending.
Yeah, or just make it feel more pointless. And it's like, we needed to have something like Thorin needed to be taken down a peg, and Bilbo needed to be brought up, both in their eyes, and they have their emotional revelation on the rock where he's like, oh, I love you, Frodo, and you're so attractive. But
I heard him say it.
But yeah, Frodo. That's right. But yeah, it's like, I'm glad that it's done the way that it is. It breaks it up into a trilogy well at this point, and just helps give that final escape and that final battle just a little bit more of an emotional impact for the conclusion this movie deserved, and to lead into the awesome a shot of the eyeball that leads into the next one.
Oh yeah.
Heck yeah.
Mampton, thoughts? What do you want to know about the Eagles?
Well, first, I was gonna say that
He was-
the wargs, them coming in and everybody jumping into the trees, while Bilbo is stuck on the ground because he just randomly killed a giant ass hyena dog with a little letter opener.
He did. It ran right into him.
Yeah,
Right.
that was interesting.
Right into his skull.
Like, that's something he's going to tell the grandkids about. But it's stuff like that almost makes you wonder if it's just Bilbo embellishing the story while he's telling it to Frodo.
I mean, yeah, that's I've considered that many times. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I have, because that is the framing device that is used for this story. Is that this is like
The story that he's
in
writing.
his book, in his head, and it's just like, yeah. I definitely consider that.
And it's great. I love seeing that kind of stuff, and it really makes you see that they care about the films that they're making, and that's why they come out so well. Gandalf talks to his little butterfly buddy, brings the eagles, and what I was just saying is that when we watched the animated version the other day, the eagles were like, yeah, I know Gandalf, and we go way back. And it's just like, oh, okay, so he knows the eagles, and so that he has.
Yeah, man,
like,
you loved that.
relationship. I'm like, all right.
No, I forgot that they had the eagles talk and everything, and they talk in the book, and they actually take them to their nest in the book. They go to the eagle's nest and stay the night.
Obviously, they want to
Wink.
use the eagles probably as least as they can, so that doesn't beg the question.
They're noble creatures.
Why don't the eagles just solve all of their problems all the time?
Peter Jackson has never added superfluous eagle scenes. All eagle scenes that are in Middle Earth were written by Tolkien.
Exactly. Yeah,
do not blame him.
Taking out the exposition between Gandalf and the eagles probably makes a whole lot of sense. I just liked it because I thought it was random and fucking cool and shit. I was like, yeah. What? After everything, there's just random giant talking eagles.
Now, I did think Desolation should have done that. Like, they should have had a conversation, because it is something that people, like, definitely harp on.
All right.
So, Hobbits is awesome.
Yep. Next up is Desolation of Smaug.
Yeah, Desolation of Smaug is up. Okay, this video has been super long. We didn't dive into the general reasons people dislike it. We did a little bit. So we'll save that for the other two. We haven't talked about the fact that it's like 48 frames per second. And the digital mats and the stuff. This video's been long enough.
Alright, I'm gonna wrap it up. If you watch this whole thing,
fucking thank you.
Yeah, holy shit. You're the real MVP.
I know. Comment at the bottom whether you love or hate The Hobbit. Let us know what you think.
If you've made it this far, also put 38 at the very top, then we'll know you watched the whole thing, and you'll get a heart and maybe sexual favors.
An eggplant emoji.
Eggplant emoji.
All right, we'll see you. We will see all you cool cats and kittens next time on the Desolation of Smaug.
I wouldn't dare cheek.